Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? This time we're tackling what it's like to be Nigerian and living in the UK.
Yeah.
We hit the streets to hear from Nigerians themselves, people who've been in the UK for all sorts of lengths of time.
Yeah, some just got there and some have been there for years, so it's a real mix of perspectives, which is what makes this so fascinating.
Totally. And as you listen, think about what unites these experiences and what makes each person's past unique. It's really cool.
You might even find yourself comparing their stories to your own life choices, like what matters most to you when it comes to where you live and stuff.
For sure. And one thing that kept popping up, no matter how long someone had been in the UK, was the weather. Can you believe that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, going from tropical Nigeria to the UK, that's got to be a shock to the system.
Big time. Like, how do you even prepare for that?
Yeah.
What really stood out to you about how people talked about the weather?
It wasn't just about missing the sun, though obviously that's a big part of it. One person actually said the weather made them feel isolated, like it was harder to get out there and socialize because of it, and that really affected their well-being. It's crazy how something we barely think about can have such a huge impact?
It makes you realize how much we take for granted, huh? And speaking of things we take for granted, I was surprised by how many people brought up food. Like one person even said they struggled to find the ingredients they needed to cook Nigerian food, and they had to go out of their way to find them.
Oh yeah, that's classic culture shock, right?
Right.
It's not just missing home, it's the little everyday things that become a hassle. Imagine waking up wanting your favorite dish and realizing you can't just whip it up like you used to. That's got to be tough. Makes you think, how adaptable are you really? Could you handle that kind of constant adjustment?
It's a good question to ask ourselves,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. Even though everyone mentioned the weather and food, they all felt differently about it. Some people brushed it off while others really struggled. And then there's the whole financial side of things, right?
Surely.
One person described life in the UK as a circle, like a routine. What do they mean by that?
That circle was all about work-life balance. For that person, it felt like their whole life revolved around work. They had stability, which is great, but not much freedom to be spontaneous or try new things. It was kind of limiting.
Huh.
I think it shows how different people value different things. Some crave stability, others want excitement. It all depends.
Yeah, that makes sense. And speaking of financial pressures, one mom talked about the high cost of childcare in the UK. And she was juggling work and family. It sounded super stressful.
That part really got to me too, and this is where things get really interesting. It's a perfect example of the hidden costs of moving to a new country. Like, we assume financial success equals happiness, right? But what if most of your money goes towards childcare just so you can work? Are you really better off?
That's such a good point. It makes you rethink what better off even means. But you know what surprised me? Even with all these challenges, most people didn't regret moving to the UK. Like one guy even said he'd only go back to Nigeria. A rich man. Talk about ambition.
Yeah, there's this resilience that shines through in their stories. Like, they're willing to endure the tough times for a brighter future. They see the UK as a stepping stone, a chance to work hard now and hopefully reap the rewards later. It's pretty inspiring.
Definitely. But not everyone felt that way. One person said they'd leave the UK in a heartbeat if a better opportunity came up. They weren't tied to the UK specifically. They were just looking for the best possible situation, wherever that might be.
That's really insightful. It reminds us that the best place is different for everyone, and it can change over time, too. Like, what seems perfect now might not be perfect in 5 years. What would you prioritize when making a big move like that? What would make a new place feel like home to you?
Yeah, it's like everyone's got their own compass, pointing them in different directions. And family played a big role in a lot of these stories, too. It seems like no matter how exciting life in the UK is, there's still that pull towards loved ones back in Nigeria.
Absolutely, you could hear that longing in their voices. It makes sense, though, right? A family is such a huge part of Nigerian culture. Being so far away from that must be tough. It really highlights how important those connections are for all of us.
Definitely. And one person even mentioned that they found the UK a bit, well, boring compared to life back in Nigeria. Like they felt stuck in a routine without that spontaneity, and that seemed to really get to them.
Yeah. It's interesting how different cultures value different things. In some places, routine is good. In others, it's all about living in the moment. It's crazy how even fun can have totally different meanings depending on where you come from.
That's so true. And it's not just about what individuals prefer, it's about deeper cultural values, right?
Mhm.
We often assume everyone wants the same things. But these interviews show that's just not the case. What's enjoyable for one person might feel stifling to another.
Exactly. It's a good reminder to be open-minded and not jump to conclusions. What else stood out to you about the challenges people faced?
Well, the cost of living came up a lot. It was a constant source of stress for people, regardless of how much they were earning. It wasn't just about paying the bills, it was about feeling financially secure and being able to actually enjoy life.
Yeah, that's a common experience for immigrants, especially in expensive cities. Rent, transportation, food, it adds up fast. And remember the mom who talked about childcare costs. Those burdens hit families even harder. It's not just about having enough money, it's about so much more.
It's true. Even when you're financially successful, those underlying pressures can be tough. You're always juggling and making sacrifices.
It really makes you question what success even means, right? It's not just about your income, it's about finding balance and fulfillment in your life. And for a lot of immigrants, that balance is constantly changing as they adapt to their new reality.
It's pretty amazing how resourceful and resilient people are, even when faced with all these obstacles.
Oh, absolutely. There's this determination in their stories that's so inspiring. Remember the interviewee who said moving to the UK was an upward movement?
Yeah.
They knew what they wanted, and they were willing to put in the work to get there no matter what.
And it wasn't just personal ambition either. A lot of people talked about providing for their families back in Nigeria. That sense of responsibility seemed to give them extra strength to keep going.
That's a really important point. Immigration is often about more than just individual dreams. It's about family, community, and creating a better future for everyone.
For sure. But it's interesting because some people saw the UK as a temporary stop, a way to eventually go back to Nigeria, while others were open to moving to yet another country if it meant a better opportunity.
It shows how many immigrants are constantly weighing their options, thinking about their goals, and trying to figure out where they fit in best.
It's like they're always searching for that next step, that next chance to improve their lives, and it takes a lot of courage to embrace that uncertainty, to be willing to pick up and move potentially multiple times. That's incredible.
That's a key takeaway here, isn't it? Choosing to migrate in the first place takes a lot of adaptability and resilience, and those qualities help people overcome the challenges they face in a new country.
It's like they've already proven to themselves they can handle anything, that they can adapt and thrive no matter where they are.
And that inner strength seems to carry them through even the toughest times. That inherent resilience is something we see a lot in immigrant stories. It's that ability to bounce back from setbacks, to get creative and solve problems, and to never give up hope even when things are difficult.
And that's what makes these stories so powerful. They remind us that the human spirit can overcome anything, no matter the challenges.
It's amazing, isn't it, how people find that strength to just keep going.
You know, one thing I kept thinking about was that guy who just casually mentioned his YouTube channel, Oliver Mwaname. It was funny, but it also made me realize these aren't just immigrants,
Yeah.
you know? They're people with their own passions and side hustles and dreams. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
Exactly. It's like that little detail reminds us we're talking about real people with whole lives, not just some category or stereotype. And you see that entrepreneurial spirit a lot with immigrants. They're not just looking for a handout, they're creating opportunities for themselves.
Which brings us back to that final question for you listening. Remember that interviewee who said they wouldn't leave the UK unless they found a country that paid nurses better? It's not just about staying or going home. It's about figuring out where the best opportunities are all the time.
Right. It makes you think about what really makes a place worth staying in. It's not just about money. It's about belonging, having a purpose, feeling like you can grow and build a good life for yourself and your family.
We've only scratched the surface here, but hopefully this deep dive gave you a new perspective on what it's like for Nigerians in the UK.
Ah.
It's not all about struggle. It's about resilience, dreams, and that constant search for a better future. It's pretty incredible.
And if this got you thinking, don't stop here. Go find more stories, listen to different perspectives, and challenge your own assumptions about what it means to belong. The more we understand each other's experiences, the more connected we'll all feel, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's what the deep dive is all about. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.